Have you got a definition for customer centricity? Have you worked out the best way to sort of infuse that commitment towards customers and that intimacy into large and complex businesses?
Yeah, it's a big question again, because it relies a little bit on a diagnosis of the environment you're considering and how they might move to being more customer centric. So if I start with the tech space, there's always a big conversation about, are we customer oriented? Are we product oriented? What's our orientation? And I think the real challenge, and why tech industry in a sense has progressed a lot, is that, functional excellence only gets you so far. You can have the best finance department in the world, you can have the best product development department in the world, you can have the best sales department in the world. But what's more important is not the functional excellence there, it's the interconnection between those things. So the challenge with being customer centric is it's irrelevant if it doesn't penetrate your product organisation and your product roadmaps. It's irrelevant if satisfying a customer is uneconomic. So the whole point here that I always reflect on is it's like three legs of a stool. You need to attract customers to have a business. That's really important. You have to have a product and a service that customer wants to be successful. And then you also need the economics that go with that. You need strong finance, you need good revenue management capabilities. And when you take any one of those things away, that you don't have a customer, you don't have a product, or you don't have an economic model, the thing falls over.
Yeah.
So I actually think that the danger in thinking that's one thing over the others is over-orienting towards one. The reality is success is in that continual evolution and interconnection between the customer eyeball or experience, the product and tech you're investing to build, or the service you're operating, and the money that flows into the company. And when you're a startup, right, it's really a founder in the middle of that, thinking about a customer problem they want to solve, a product they want to build, and the economic model. And it's only through iteration. And then as you get bigger and bigger, the danger is that iteration between those functions starts to fall apart because they get big and they get more separate, and you start to lose what it is you had in the first place, which is that customer obsession or solving that customer problem. Yeah. So it's on one hand, the voice of the customer being really loud in your organisation, but it's actually how you channel that into that iteration of product, service, technology to the economics of your business and continue to evolve it as the world changes around you and as you change your business.
And that adaptation over time is so important, isn't it? Because when you're in that startup phase, you've got that intimacy with customers, you're trying to solve a problem, you're right across it and you're so close to them. And as a business gets larger and larger, layers start to sort of form between yourself and customer, and that's where that voice that's continuous is important. But it's not just the sort of functional satisfaction type feedback, is it? It's that sort of empathetic understanding of what's motivating human behaviour. And have you sort of come across any approaches that have worked really well for making sure that a large, complex business still has those points of intimacy through different parts of the operation, so that you are fighting against an internal orientation, which kind of becomes more natural?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I think, if I look at the last 5 years and beyond at Xero, there were many, many points of interconnection with customers and partners. And that was very deep in the culture of the organisation. It was in every aspect. That we had a significant conference once or twice a year with our XeroCon, which is all about listening to partners, but also talking about what's coming in the context of helping them achieve what they're trying to achieve on behalf of their small business clients. We had within our marketing function significant research capabilities, and we measure customer sat. It's one of the key metrics. So NPS of both our small business customers and our partners, the accounting and bookkeeping profession, is something that gets constant attention. And then at company meetings, every environment we like to bring a customer problem or bring customers to the table. So to my mind, there are many ways you can do that. you think you got to be very careful about is that in the technology industry or fast-changing industries, your customers aren't necessarily going to ask you for the things that really are the solutions to their problems.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep pushing the fact that customer centricity is taking customer feedback. It is about understanding and the voice of the customer in a disciplined way. But it really is more about how does that factor into the whole iteration of your business and your business model and the product and technology roadmap. So sharing that knowledge is really, really important. So even once a week, having all leaders of the business hear how the business is going, what customers are telling us is a really important thing as well. And we did that and do that at Xero.
I think it's a really good point. There's a lot of organisations that have subscribed to the NPS sort of program or have great satisfaction metrics flowing into every part of their business, but you get one level of insight there, don't you? It's more about understanding the sort of human condition and what's motivating that human behaviour that gives rise to real innovation. So the point's so valid. It's not just about responding to obvious issues that customers point out. They don't usually articulate exactly where they want you to take things. It's your role as a company to understand them at such a deep level that you can innovate and give them things they didn't know they need, correct?
Yeah, and that opens up the whole notion of segmentation. This is a really fascinating domain. It's really trying to understand the behaviour of customers and segmenting them beyond what they buy into why they buy and how they buy. And then you've got the really challenging question of which customers do you think you can actually serve well? Because one of the worst things you can do is continue to invest in trying to provide something to a customer set that isn't going to meet their expectations or isn't going to beat what others have to offer or compete with what others have to offer. So really understanding what motivates customers in the way they think and what they want to buy is an important way to kind of graduate your focus on the customer and understanding the customer needs. But it takes a lot of work.
And a lot of discipline, yeah?
You bet, a lot of discipline.
Do you agree that good strategy is almost about how much you say no to, right? And the trap of just, so many businesses fall into the trap of trying to do everything and trying to be everything to everyone. So what have you learnt about segmentation? At Xero, was that a real strength? Do you feel like you understood different types of customers and were laser-like focused on the customer you wanted to serve? And tell me a bit about that, because I see a lot of segmentation models that are very complex but difficult to operationalise. So
I have too, over the years in many different contexts. I've seen some as a board director and some as a manager in an organisation. Look, I think my experience is we've always been on a journey there, and I think that the complexity of operationalising it means you've got to be very careful about how far you go at any particular point in time.
Yeah.
I think you've really got to make sure that when you bring too much science into things and it can't be implemented, then you're kidding yourself by trying to overemphasize those things. But I think it's useful to explore it and to put it into terms that can become useful. And even if it says, look, we want to, now as a result of what we've learned through this segmentation, we want to focus on customers of this type, that can be a really helpful outcome.
Yeah.
Because you're right, saying no to good ideas is often the key to focus.
Yeah.
And discipline, as you put it, discipline is really so important, particularly now when I think the world of work has more distractions than ever before and more distance between people than ever before.
Yeah.
So discipline is fundamental, really fundamental.
So a nice little segue if we talk about decision making and saying no to things is when you're in a leadership role and people want to enhance the experience they're delivering to their customers, there is no shortage of opportunities. There are 180 pain points we should fix. There are 58 innovative ideas we'd like to implement. Today's seamless experience is tomorrow's friction. You've got to look at the competitors, you've got to understand customers, but you've got a lot of pressure from inside the organisation in terms of people who want to do certain things. So when you have hundreds of improvements or innovations you could make to a product, What was the way you sort of looked at evaluating different options and trade-offs and trying to prioritise effectively?
Yeah, well, the whole notion of focus is ultimately saying no to good ideas that have come from good people.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard. And that's why the temptation is always there to give a little bit to lots rather than to give in more significant chunks to the most important things. So look, I think it's grounded in strategy, in that if you can be clear as you go through your strategy process about the top 2 or 3 things that you need to accomplish. And even that is at a very high level. But as long as there's something that talks to which markets are most important, which customer sets are most important, and which products are the most important to success in whatever the time frame is that you choose, that's foundational. But it does ultimately come down to a question of leadership.